Howdy everybody, welcome to the shop. As you can see from the way I'm doing the intro to this video, it's a little different from my norm. And this is a kind of a project introduction to a project that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I finally decided that I'm going to go ahead and kick this off now that I've gotten the locomotive pretty much finished and ready to go, the big 7.5-inch gauge locomotive. So without further ado, this project is going to be a build project, and it may take me a year or longer, but hopefully not. But it's building the universal pillar tool, which is a device that was designed by George Thomas, a very prolific British author. He published a lot of handy shop manual stuff. You can just search that name, you'll be able to see all over the place things that he made that could be used on Myford lathes and smaller steam engineering, model engineering, steam locomotives, that kind of thing. So I have built something by his design, which got me interested in it in the first place. I'd like to show you that, and then I'll show you why. Why do I want to build something that looks like a tiny drill press? So show you a little bit about what George Thomas, this is one of his creations that I actually built. It's the 4-inch non-geared rotary table, and you can get plans for this. I think I bought mine from a gentleman named Guy Letard in Canada, but this was one of my first important or significant, I guess you would say, metalworking projects. And the neat thing about George Thomas designs, when you buy the plans, there's also a book that comes with it. It takes you step by step through each process. And I built this thing using my LatheMaster 8x14 lathe. This is the first and biggest thing I did on it, and actually the four-jaw chuck for the LatheMaster held this steel here, and I was able to turn the base. It's very detailed and intricate, a lot more to it than you can see just looking at it. There's a couple of little stops that you adjust with a hex key, and there's the way you move it, it's not geared, but there's a Tommy bar that goes in the side. This will be bolted down to a surface, and you could move this, so it's handy if you wanted to mill an expansion link or something like that on a smaller project. Another cool thing about this one, I made a little adapter that screws in here, and the outside thread of this is 3/4 16, so any chuck, anything that would fit a Sherline or a TEG lathe can fit on here and be clamped down and then automatically centered. So this was a George Thomas design. I knew that making something that he had designed would be useful and that he would do a good job in the direction. So I'm really excited about making the George Thomas pillar tool. There are I'll get into some other resources in a second, but I wanted to show you why, in case you're wondering why in the world, because I built a big locomotive, the 7.5-inch gauge locomotive, and that's basically finished. The next thing I want to build, and I've got a bunch of castings for these things, are these 3.5-inch gauge locomotives. As you can see, they're tiny, easy to pick up. This is the LBSC Titch, and this thing, I think even when completed, it'll probably only weigh about 20 pounds. I bought this partially built one from Bill Shields, and I'm very much looking forward to finishing this. And I thought the pillar tool would be a very handy thing to have to finish, because as you can see, here's the cylinders. See how tiny they are compared to the cylinders on the Allen Mogul. They're tiny and delicate, and I'm going to have to drill and tap a bunch of holes around here after I machine this steam chest. This is just to show you what the size of these parts are, and that'll be bolted down here. But obviously you want to be able to not break a tap off in this beautiful bronze cylinder castings here. So having something like the pillar tool is going to be very handy for that. So that's a little bit more of the why. Now let me show you the actual pieces of the pillar tool. I bought another interesting thing about this project. There is one video build series on the internet, on YouTube, that's a build series about the pillar tool, but it was a guy named Per Eric Hogland, I believe is his name, but he just started. He did one video, part one, and there hasn't been the rest. So Per Eric, if you see this, or if any of your friends see it, please, I'd love to see the rest of your build on YouTube if you can put it on there. I'll do my best to document my build for everybody. Here is the base. I bought these castings from Martin Models out in Washington State, I believe is where they're located. And they came in a nice UPS, U.S. Postal Service box with little plywood in there, and they arrived in great shape, and they're absolutely beautiful castings. So I'm very much looking forward to machining these. Part of the reason I wanted to go ahead and do this video now is because I will be cutting off or grinding off some of the little flash areas there just to make it easier to machine. And I wanted everybody to be able to see how nice these castings look. This is part one. This is the base. This will have to get machined, and the center of it will be machined, bored through for the actual pillar to go in here. So that's the base casting. There are arms. These are the two arms. There's a part that will get bored to 7/8 of an inch and a part that will get bored to 3/4 of an inch that will hold the work. And if you're familiar with the pillar tool, you'll notice that these arms are longer or larger than the normal, the standard pillar tool. This is actually designed, instead of the standard one has a 3.5 inch reach from the center of the pillar to the center of whatever tool or appliance you're using. This is a 6-inch reach, and I just thought, well, you know, even though I'm building smaller things, or that's my desire, it'd be handy to have that extra space. You know, nothing is worse than trying to, you know, manipulate something on a you can't see it, but my drill press, or my bandsaw. You know, you're always running out of throat space with something like a bandsaw. So having a little extra distance would be not a bad thing. So you get two of these, and then there's also the top piece, which will be machined for the drill head, which this will be a detailed operation. There's a ton of things that have to get made on here, but just, I don't know if you can pick that up in the light here, but this is just a beautiful casting. I mean, it looks to me, I hope it's right, but it looks like this has very true surface. You know, it's not a hardened surface on there, and it looks like it has a lot of graphite in this iron too, which would be fantastic. The more graphite in there makes it easier to machine. But I'm going to have to cut these little sprue and grind this off before I start machining. So I wanted to show that. That's part of the reason I wanted to show it. Also, down here is the table. This is what the table will look like. It's basically a 6-inch cast iron disc with a center part that will have to be machined, and of course the entire surface gets machined, and then there will be slots that will be machined, milled into it. And the happy thing for me is it fits in my 4-jaw chuck for my Grizzly 12x36 lathe. So that's what I've got here on the workbench, and really excited about that. So I'm planning out my machining steps to get that done. So I'll probably will start on the table. I'll probably be the first cast iron part that I make, and there are a bunch of detail things that the table itself gets bored, and there's a piece of 3/4 inch, what I'm using is drill rod, which will be a stem here that can sit in the arm like this, and where the arm is on the pillar, and so you can see how much space, basically, hopefully you can see that, is going to be in between the table and the pillar. So it'll be nice working room, and very excited. The table also looks like pretty nice cast iron there. If you can see, there's a little bit, I haven't done anything to these castings whatsoever, but this one has a little bit of a rough edge here, so before I even machine it, when I get some time, I will go out with my angle grinder and just knock off these high spots, or you could use a file too, just to get rid of all those. And there's a little bit of the sprue, casting sprue is on the edge there, that'll need to get knocked off too. Way easier to take that off with an angle grinder or something than have an interrupted cut forever on your lathe. So that's the table. The arms have an interesting feature. Let me show you this. I've already machined a bunch of these little brass pieces that will be inserted into the arms, and they will be when I bore for both the 3/4 inch part in the front and the 7/8 inch part in the back. These will be basically locking lugs that will be able to be drawn in. They're tapped in the center, and so I've already prepared them. It's 1/2 inch brass with a 1/16 of an inch slit milled down the center of it, and then of course drilled and tapped in the middle. And I've got a handful of those already prepared. Have enough for the whole project right there. So, and I've collected a tiny drill chuck that I can use for some of the sensitive drilling work, and that'll be ready to go. So that just wanted to touch on the resources if you're building a project like this. Of course, the book, now there's another book that has this and another project in it. The other book is available from Martin Models that sells the castings. I actually bought this book prior to it, so I was already familiar with it. And what I do, I make Xerox copies of the pages, and then I put my construction notes. It's fun for me to think about, okay, I'll do this step first and the next step, and a nice idea, and it makes it fun to do too when you get out in the workshop. If you only have a limited amount of time in the evenings, you know, you can say, okay, I'll just go straight. Oh yeah, this is where I left off, and I need to do this. So anyway, I've prepared a little bit that way. Let me show you what else. There is a ton of resources on the internet. There's a guy named Duncan. There's Duncan's Metal Pages, and if you just Google that, you'll find it. And he's got a very abbreviated series about his construction of a pillar tool, but I appreciate, because I got some ideas out of this. He's got a few photographs, and very helpful to look at that. There's also, let me show you, a very detailed build series that a fellow named Don, 1966, did on the Model Engine Maker website. And I printed this out, and it's like 15 pages, and he's got great photographs of his setups and how he laid things out and did them. So really excited about that. Probably the Mac Daddy of internet resources for a project like this is Ron Chernik, Chernich, and I'll refer to Ron. He's if you Google GHT for George H. Thomas, GHT UPT build, real, and Ron Chernik, you could add that. But Ron's got a whole series on there on his website. That he was a very prolific model airplane engine builder. He built internal combustion engines, and Ron has some great. He also built a Quorn, so he's got some good build stuff on there. He's a funny author. He put it where if he made a mistake, he talked about that. So very helpful in making sure you do things right. So there's some handy resources for you. Also, there's an entire build series in the Home Shop Machinist magazine. So it starts January, February of 1991, March, April 91, May, June 91, July, August 91, September, October 91. And you can buy these off of eBay for a relatively reasonable price. If you find a home shop machinist who's selling theirs, you can get a very reasonable bargain. One interesting thing about this series, this is written by a gentleman named Harold Mason, and instead of using the ball handles, he does these. I don't know if you can see them on here, but they're little sliding kind of T-handles like you'd find on a vise. So a little bit different take on it. He actually had built 2 of them, so pretty experienced builder, and a lot of good suggestions inside these articles. So I've looked over those for years now and made notes about building it, and looking forward to using his. I haven't made up my mind yet. If you're wondering, I haven't decided whether I want to use ball handles or the sliding handles. I'm leaning towards the ball handles because if you followed my Gingrey Shaper project, then you know that I like building. I have a ball turning machine, and I can do ball handles pretty easily, so I'll probably go with the ball handles for this project. All right, one more thing. I'm trying to keep this under 15 minutes. One more thing, that what I do, just to show you my approach with the castings, I examine them, I make mental notes about what am I going to have to do to get the flash off and so forth. I measure them, and I draw a little picture of the casting, I write down the measurements that I'm seeing here, and then I think about what I need to do, what my processes will be for cleaning up, milling things square or into a the dimension that can be held in a vise. I think that's an important thing to do with a casting. It's a good reality check to think about it, measure it, think about it, and think about your work holding. All right, how am I going to actually hold on to this thing? So the last thing I want to do is buy another set of castings. So if anything I can do to prepare and be ready and have it go, my limited shop time when I come home from work, in the evening, if I get an hour, if my sole objective that evening is to bore a 7/8 inch hole in the right place that's exactly 6 inches distant from the 3/4 inch hole, I want that to go right. I don't want to mess it up. So measuring and planning ahead is pretty important, and it makes it much more fun, much more enjoyable when you do that. So I have my little notebook, which is covered with greasy fingerprints, and I draw all the castings and think about it and make notes about how I want to machine them. So with that as my project, I guess we're a little bit over 15, 16 minutes, but some people have asked me to do longer videos, and hopefully that makes sense to you. This is gonna, like I said, gonna take a long time. I've started a new job, so just in the evenings and just when I have time, but really looking forward to it, really excited about it. And the best part will be when I'm done, just like with the Gingrey Shaper project, when I'm done, I'll have a small, very portable tool that I can use to make very precise and very delicate things. So I hope that's interesting to you. It certainly is an interest for me, and I'm very excited about that and happy to share it with you. And I'd love to, any comments or questions, please pass the word. I'd love to grow the subscribers. Had a very nice comment from a subscriber the other day that said, hey, you need more views, so I couldn't agree more. But I'm not trying to I just want this to be a useful resource for the home shop machinist or the home repair person, whatever. So again, hope this is enjoyable to you, and I will keep you posted. Take care, everybody.